Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little of PokerCoaching.com, and today we're going to be going through the first part of a long series that I made for the Tournament Masterclass at PokerCoaching.com, where I go over my most recent win. I won the tournament, first place. Actually, we chopped it because we got heads up and I had to go put my kids to sleep. It was a $500 buy-in tournament with about 300 people, and I managed to chop the title. I guess I should cut this in half. This isn't actually the trophy they gave to me. This is a trophy from a different tournament. But anyway, we won the tournament. This is part one. I hope you enjoy it. Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little for PokerCoaching.com, and we have a special video today where we're going to be reviewing a tournament that I played yesterday that I won. It was a $500 buy-in tournament, and kind of funny story. I had a mild surgery the other day, so I'm on pain medicine, and I sat down, I was going to do some work on a mathematical-based project for all of you, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't do math right now. So I couldn't do math right now. It was kind of early in the day, so I decided, you know what? I'm going to load up whatever tournaments I can that are supposed to end before 6:30 p.m. when I'm supposed to go take care of my kids. And I loaded up about 5 tournaments. I played two $100 tournaments, a $400 tournament, a $500 tournament, and a $200 tournament. I lost the $200 tournament. I made day 2 of the $400 tournament with a bunch of chips, 3 times average. I took 6th place and 3rd place in the $100 tournaments. They were small field events, maybe 200 people. Still pretty good. And this $500 tournament, I didn't win it. I chopped it. You may say, why would you chop it? We chopped it heads up because it was already 7 p.m. and I had to go give my kids a bath. So it's a lot of fun. I got $21,000 for this one, so a solid pain-medicated day. I have literally no clue what happens in this tournament. I don't really remember it. I'm telling you, I was kind of out of it. Now look, you don't want to play inebriated. I don't think I was inebriated. I sat there, I felt good all day. I was playing the poker tournament. So let's take a look at these hands. Like I said, I really have no clue what happened in this tournament, but I have to imagine I'm not going to say I autopiloted it, but I probably was not paying the best attention just because I couldn't do math. And if I can't do math, I probably I'm not going to be trying to make any sick plays on my opponents. That said, let's just see what happened in this hand history. So you see we're playing pretty deep stacked. Here we raise it up with with queen 10 suited. Can't even read the board, go figure. Not on the pain medicine right now. I should probably get on some though. I raised it up. Small blind goes all in for 25 big blinds. We have to fold, of course. Easy fold. Pocket aces, here we go. Under the gun raises, and I elect to flat call. You may say, why flat call here? Look, I'm a pretty big fan of just calling against under the gun openers to begin with because their range should be decently strong, and I don't really want to 3-bet a hand like jacks or ace queen and then get 3-bet, right? Or get 4-bet. So this is a spot where I opt to just protect my entire range by calling with everything. Also, we just saw this guy jam, which, it'd be great if you did that again, right? So every once in a while, you call here, this guy jams, this guy shoves, you get all the money. The only way this could go poorly is if it goes like really multi-way and the flop comes very coordinated. But for the most part, we are pretty happy calling, because if you see the pot heads up in position, it's fine. If you see it 3 ways in position, it's fine. If you see it 4 ways, 5 ways out of position, it doesn't really matter as long as you play well after the flop. And I trust myself to play at least reasonably well after the flop. We see it 4 ways. Not really ideal. This is a very blank board. We have the best hand virtually always. You do have to be a little bit careful here. Like if I bet this and then villain 5 raises and villain 8 re-raises, I'm going to fold, right? So you have to make sure you are capable of getting away from these hands if things go very poorly. But I'm just going to throw out a bet here. Something like 2/3 pot. If someone has an overpair or a 7, they're never going to fold. If they have ace 5 or ace 4 or ace 3 or ace 2, they're going to stick around. And if they have nothing, they're just going to fold to any bet. So I'd rather just get more money in the pot against the hands that I'm doing well against. This time they all fold though, which is fine. 3-2 in the small blind, I'm just not even going to play the hand. Jack 6 on the button, not going to play it either. 4-3 suited in the cutoff, not going to play it either. King 10 offsuit, you can go either way between raising or folding. I think either's fine. We're going to go through all the hands that I play here. I'm not going to go through like every single hand where I don't play. Here we have a raise, we'll defend the 10-9 offsuit. Flop a gut shot, but this board's very bad for me. Also, the opponent bets big. If they bet small, like 2 big blinds, I could definitely see sticking around. But this is a board where the opponent should be betting big because, well, They don't really want to let me see the turn for 2 big blinds with a hand like this, right? And if I have a king or a queen, I'm not going to fold, so kind of like my pocket aces a second ago, they might as well just get more money in the pot against the hands that they can get value from. So I do just let it go. Out of position with a bad gut shot is fine to get out of the way. Raise, call from under the gun. What do I do here? Probably a fold. Yeah, I like fold here. This is a spot where under the gun should be strong, right? This player should have good, strong, big cards the majority of the time. So between these two players, it's highly likely I'm dominated. So out of position, dominated, just get out of the way early. Maybe we'll get to see what they have. No, we don't get to see what they have, but this guy went bet, 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 right? So probably had something pretty good. What's pretty good on this board? Ace, queen or better, right? All right, pocket queens against a limp from early position. You don't see too many limps in $500 buy-in tournaments, but every once in a while it happens. I'll just raise it up to about 5 big blinds. You can go 4.5 big blinds. This site, it makes it kind of hard to go 4.5. I'd probably prefer 4.5 over 5, but it doesn't make a big difference, I don't think. Well, it just folds, though. I don't really know what people are limping and then folding for 4 big blinds more, but people do it. Depending on which site you're playing on or which games you're playing in, you definitely want to keep track of how limpers play in general, because sometimes the limpers in some games are just going to call that 5 big blind raise literally every time, and other times the players are going to fold they're going to fold every time. And if your opponents are folding to the raise after they limp every time, you really should be attacking the limpers a ton. If they're going to call every time and then play well enough post flop, you can't really get all that out of line. So make sure you pay attention to how they are playing. Ace king offsuit, we can call or 3-bet. Either play is fine. I mentioned earlier that I typically call against early position raisers, but notice here we are playing a little bit short-handed, 7-handed. I'm more inclined to 3-bet 7-handed against quote-unquote under the gun compared to 9-handed or 10-handed under the gun. If they raise 10-handed under the gun, they just have to have something good. 7-handed, they can start raising much weaker hands to the point that we can 3-bet the ace-king happily. He calls, queen 8-6, not great, but I think we probably just want to bet. I do a decent amount of betting here, just small betting with my entire range. Opponent calls. When they call the flop bet, they usually have some sort of pair, and I'm not really in the business of trying to get people to fold pairs all that often. Especially when I could win at showdown, because every once in a while I hear the opponent has ace-jack, ace-10, 10-9 suited, etc. And they'll just end up checking it down and I win in those scenarios, so I don't think we need to bluff this. Just check, 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 check. We get the king on the river, so now we will value bet. We have the best hand virtually always. I think we want to go medium. We're trying to get called by a queen or pocket 10s or an 8, right? So I think 15 big blinds is probably ideal. I think 22 is a little bit too big. I think pocket 10s will start folding out here some portion of the time. I don't hate this bet, though. I will say that in games where your opponents are a little bit more battly, like willing to fight, I definitely like using bigger bet sizes here, because if I did have ace-x suited, I would definitely want to be betting big. If I had ace-jack, I would definitely want to be betting big, or ace-10, I definitely want to be betting big. So I get the idea of using this bet size. I don't have a problem with it, but I think if we were just straight up trying to maximize value with this hand, I think a small bet's probably ideal, because I think a small bet probably gets called a lot more than a 22 big blind bet. But very often in the higher stakes games, I lean towards balance, and I also lean towards bigger bet sizes, because higher stakes players aren't afraid. Under the gun raise, we'll call, but this is not a great scenario. I check, opponent bets small. I just fold. This may be a little bit weak. I think I'd prefer a raise. Yeah, I think I'd prefer a raise. We have all the backdoor draws, and this board is really good for my range and not so great for my opponent's range. And they're betting small, which kind of indicates a frequent continuation bet. So I think I should have raised here to about 5.5 big blinds or so, just to start putting the opponent in a tough spot with all of their hands, really. If you think about it, even a hand like pocket aces is kind of a bluff catcher if I check raise the flop, because I could easily have 9-7 or 9s or 7s, right? So I like the idea of check raising here, and if I improve to any draw on the turn, gut shot or flush draw, I'll keep betting. If I don't improve, I'll check and then fold. So this is a little bit too weak against a small bet. If the opponent bet bigger on the flop, I'd be more inclined to fold immediately. Raise. We'll just call with the pairs. I'm a big fan of calling with pairs in tournaments. You just want to try to flop sets. Sets are great. Check, check, check. It's a pretty safe turn. If we had the best hand on the flop, we'd probably have the best hand on the turn the majority of the time. So I think we can go for a bet here. Kind of big. I check, though. I don't hate checking either. I think it's fine. This is one of these scenarios where, as your opponents are more aggressive, you should be more inclined to check, because you really don't want to bet and get raised. And you also really don't want to let it check through, right? So if it checks through, and the river's, I mean, clearly there's all sorts of bad cards on the river, that's not good for me, right? But if you know it's rarely going to check through because someone's going to bet, then you don't really have to bet yourself. Also, I really don't want to bet and get raised because I could easily still be beat, right? So this is a spot where I am more inclined to bet as the opponents are more passive, and I'm more inclined to check as the opponents are more aggressive. And I mentioned this earlier, in a $500 buy-in tournament, typically people are a little bit on the aggressive side. We obviously call. River's a 5. I check. If opponent bets, I'll call again. I know they could have a 5 or a 4. They could also have all sorts of busted draws, right? Player could easily have a 6. They could easily have an ace, etc., etc. And they do not go for the thin value bet. Kind of like they were in a similar spot to me, where if they knew the button would bet every time, or this player would bet every time, then I like a check from them on the turn, but I like the bet from their point of view as well. I think they played it fine. One thing you will notice, I don't really play bad cards. You don't need to play bad cards. Play good, fundamentally sound ranges. All right, pocket 7s. This player limps. We should probably raise it up to 3 or 4 big blinds. I think either plays fine. Awful flop. Just check down. Just check down. We win sometimes here when we check it down. They have a 10. It's fine. Whenever you get a really, really bad flop, just don't put money in the pot. So from the small blind, I've been doing a lot of 3 big blind raising and then looking to triple barrel a decent amount of the time. This has become my default play to some extent, just because people fold a little bit too often on all betting rounds, especially the river. So I've been raising here. I also think limping is fine. Limp bet is also perfectly fine. But I'm starting to get a decent amount of data, both from myself and from other players, that pretty definitively shows raising and playing the higher aggression strategy just wins more money. But like limping is definitely fine in these scenarios. It's going to be profitable, but I think raising very wide in this scenario with any hand that's playable for the most part is going to be more profitable against the player pool today. We limp, we bet the flop. Here we want to bet just to protect our equity against all sorts of stuff the opponent can have. Pretty bad turn here. It's very easy for the opponent to have an ace and not fold. They could also have a 2, right? They could also have spades. So we would check fold the turn, and we will also check fold the river. But we win. Do we win or do we chop? We chop. Whatever. Same difference. We're happy enough to get some money out of that pot. Player limps again. We get raised. I think we can go either way between calling, raising, folding. I think any option is available to us. I like to call, which seems reasonable. Again, this player just limp folds. I have no clue what they're limp folding. It makes literally no sense to me. If you're going to develop a limping range, it should be with hands that want to see a cheap flop, meaning the hands flop pretty well. If it flops pretty well, for 2.6 more big blinds closing the action, you want to call and see the flop, right? You don't want to be limping stuff like, I don't even know what they're limping. King 8 offsuit, Ace 4 offsuit. Is that what they're limping? Who knows? Like, I guess you could fold those, but you shouldn't play those to begin with. Anyway, I think this is fine to call in position. The only time you would not call with this Ace 6 suited preflop is if you think you're going to get limp re-raised some portion of the time, because that would be pretty bad. Flop a flush draw, opponent checks. We can check or bet, either one. We go for the bet. And we get raised. Neat scenario. Typically, when people check raise, they usually have a very good made hand, a draw, or a really junky hand, like in this scenario, ace with the queen of hearts, something like that. Now, I don't know who this player is, but as they are better and better at poker, I'm more inclined to rip it all in. Because as they're better and better at poker, their range is going to contain more draws, I think. I think most weak, tight, straightforward people, when they check raise, they only have good hands. If they only have good hands, like, I don't know, king, jack, or better, I don't really want to shove because they're going to call every time and I'm not all that far ahead, right? But as the opponent is better and better, they're going to have more hands like ace with a queen of hearts, or, you know, good draws like 10, 9 of hearts, queen, 10 of hearts, king, 10 of hearts, stuff like that. And I'm in very good shape against all of those. Obviously, most people will have like sets in this scenario. Maybe they check raise like pocket kings, but even against pocket kings, I'm in fine shape, right? So this is a spot where with the best draw, that loses to a lot of the, check raise bluffs like ace queen type stuff. I think the best play is probably just to rip it all in. It also makes your opponent chill out from going for check raises, which allows you to bet a little bit more often when they check. I like the shove. I think it's good. We get called, so we probably need to get there. Do we get there? Oh, no, we just had the best hand. So queen 10 of hearts, right? Makes sense. Whenever your opponent does check raise here, like I said, it's either going to be a really good mate hand, probably ace jack and better, king jack and better, something like that. It's going to be a premium draw that's going to call it off like this, or it's going to be a bluff of some sort. And I think it's fine to get it in with the best draws because they're going to call it off with the best. They're going to call it off with their draws, which you beat. They're going to call it off with their best hands, which you're 40% against or whatever. And then they're going to fold out all the other stuff, which I think is fine. So we get a giant pot there. It's always nice to not get outdrawn. 8-7 suited. We'll probably play that. 4 ways. Check, check. Check. We can bet. Do whatever you want. I typically check very multi-way middle pairs in spots where both the blinds could easily connect with the board. But, whatever. Betting's fine too. Pot size bet on the turn from the small blind. All right, so cool spot where small blind in this scenario should probably have a whole lot of hands like flush draws and big cards, but they could certainly have a hand like ace 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10, right? All those make logical sense. I'm not really drawing to anything here, right? I mean, if I get an 8 or a 7, and a 7 is good, but everything else is not particularly great for me. So I think this is just a fold. Yeah, get out of the way. In multi-way pots, when somebody wants to put in a lot of money, and there are people yet to act, you just got to play cautiously. Pocket 7s is good. Limp again. Raise, call. We'll definitely call and see the flop. Get jammed. Limp jammed. This is the annoying part about playing against reasonable players who limp, because reasonable players who limp are going to be limp jamming sometimes. So the question here is, do I have 42% equity against the opponent's range? Let's pull up Equilab real quick and just quickly analyze this spot. So we need 42% to call. We probably want like 44% to justify actually calling it off because we want to have a bit of an edge. So we have 7s. Let's just go through some hypothetical ranges for the opponent. Let's presume they're really, really tight, right? Let's presume they have ace, queen suited or better and queens are better. You see, against this range, we have 37%. So if they're really tight, we have to fold. What about if they're a little bit wider? We have give them all ace, queen, ace, jack suited, pocket 10s and better. You see? 38%. Still not quite good enough, right? The only time we can really start justifying calling off here is if the opponent's range gets a little bit, really wide to the point that they're going to start having hands we're dominating. Even then, though, we're at 47%, which is, of course, more than the 44 that we needed. But it's not like we're printing equity. So basically I need the opponent to be insane for me to justify calling it off here. And, probably not insane. Could be insane, but probably not insane. So we fold. I guess I should make it clear here. If we did have a hand like 9s, it would probably be way closer to calling. Well, again, against the insane range, 9s are, 53%, which is huge. But opponent's probably not insane. Let's go back to... Who knows what the actual range is, right? But let's presume it is this tight one. 9s is still at 37%, but as we start widening it just like a little bit more, it's probably gonna get a little bit better, right? Still not great. Maybe 9s is still a fold. Annoying, huh? We really need our opponent in with some hands we dominate. I mean, that's what it amounts to, right? You need your opponent in with hands that you dominate in order to justify calling. And if you see here, whenever they're jamming this tight range, flipping, dominated, right? We're not dominating anything. See, I guess you want to make sure you're dominating to justify calling off in that spot. I probably would have called off with 9s, but could have been a mistake. Min raise, we fold queen 10, sure. You can 3-bet it, call it, whatever. You can do whatever you want there. Whenever you're playing with an ante in play, which most tournaments do play with an ante in play, you do get to call from the small blind a lot more often compared to cash games. If you look at the 100 big blind deep GTO cash game charts of poker coaching, you'll see that you're actually supposed to fold a ton from the small blind and just 3-bet every hand you're going to play. But whenever there is an ante in play, you do get to call a whole lot more. All right, under the gun raise, we call the 9s. This is not a spot I want to 3-bet because if you're 3-betting at 4-bet, it's terrible. So we call. Oops, well, screwed that up. Let's see. Let's try it again. We get jammed here. Okay, cool. So this is a very different spot where this player is shoving 20 big blinds. So let's look at our pot odds here. So here we need to be good 40% of the time, right? And this is a very different spot where this player did not take that limp shove strategy of, you know, that should be quite good. So what does a jamming range look like a reasonable jamming range? If the opponent's reasonable, I think something like this certainly seems viable, right? So if they're jamming this, we have pocket nines. You see we have 50% equity, right? 50 is a lot. Way more than the 40 we need. Also, this player in the small blind is almost never going to call it off. Like, basically never. This guy's never trapping. So, against this range, easy call. What if we tighten it a little bit? To be like this. This is about as tight as anyone will jam, probably. You see now we're at 42%. Still 2%, 2.5% profitable call. 2% profitable call. So it's really only bad if the opponent's like really, really, really tight. And I mean, again, $500 buy-in tournament, right? Nobody's really, really, really tight. So they were at 37%, but again, no one's that tight. So I think this is a pretty easy all-in once the initial raiser folds. If the initial raiser called or re-raised, though, I would have folded. But they didn't. We get about the worst board possible, somehow managed to win. we lose to literally everything. What do we beat? We beat 8s and 7s? It's always lovely when you beat, or when you lose everything, but you still win somehow. All right, this guy raises. We'll probably flat call here. You could 3-bet. Jack 10 suited flop's great. If we 3-bet and get 4-bet, we can even still stick around, but whatever, we call. Check, check. This guy bets. With backdoor flush draw, with straight draw, with pair. Don't really see how I can fold. We get there. Check. Opponent bets. Cool spot. The problem with raising is that it really turns my hand face up as a straight, I think. I mean, it would be pretty insane to raise here without a straight. And I definitely want to do everything I can to keep my opponent bluffing. So I think the play here is to call. And then you can check call any river. I like the call here. You're probably not supposed to do much raising at all here, given your opponent could easily have a jack. They're obviously never folding a jack. If they have a set, they're not going to fold. If they have 2 pair, they probably do find a fold, which, you know, that's what we want to get value from. And if they do have some nonsense, like whatever, 6-5 of diamonds or 6-5 of hearts, I really want to keep that in the pot, right? I want to make my hand look like ace-x or ace-10 or something like that. River, I check. You want to let them bluff. Here, the right play is very often to go for a small raise, because if you use a big raise, they're just going to fold everything. But every once in a while, people make a dumb hero call here. He clicks it back. I remember at this point, his hand is coming back to me. This is going to sound really bad, but I was just over it. I'm like, whatever. Guy clearly has a jack. We're all in. But I think the all-in play is not right. I think here we should have re-clicked it back. Sounds stupid, I know. Like, it doesn't really matter here because the guy clearly has a jack. And if he doesn't have a jack, he's going to fold when I put in any more money, obviously, no matter his pot odds. But I think the right player is to use some tricky small re-raise as opposed to what I did. Obviously has a jack, right? I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this deep run review where I chopped up the $500 buy-in tournament for about $25,000. If you want to watch the rest of it, make sure you sign up for my tournament masterclass. It's included in Poker Coaching Premium. There's going to be a link below the video where you can do that. Also, in addition to just this hand history review, I have many, many other hand history reviews where I go through satellite wins, small stakes tournament wins, high stakes tournament wins, all part of my tournament masterclass. Also, the tournament masterclass is big. It's about 30 hours long, and I go through everything you need to know to succeed at tournament poker. It's just not me showing you a bunch of charts and saying, here, do what the chart says, because, well, that's close to impossible for us mere humans. Instead, I teach you to develop implementable strategies so that you know how to play poker well, and you can actually do it in games so that you can get in there, battle with the best of them, and have a great shot at winning the title too. So make sure you click the links below to get the tournament masterclass. Also, if you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor, click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons below. Hope you have a great, great week. Good luck in your games, and I'll talk to you next time.